All right, welcome back. The CPI, that's the consumer price index we talk about. Last week, surprised investors, and obviously that sent the market lower, trading lower. But on Friday, there was another thing we got, and that was going to be the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Survey. That was what really, I think, shocked most of the investors. It came in at a record-setting low of 50.2, and we were expecting something around the 58. Some had expected something even like higher, 59. It hasn't been that low since sometime during the 1980 recession. And I was a freshman in high school listening to Blondie and her hit Call Me, as well as Queen. Remember? Another one bites at us. That's kind of fitting, don't you think, today? So we're now worried about what tomorrow's PPI has in store. Then we need to suffer through the Fed's announcement on Wednesday. Remember, they're a big reason as to why we're in this situation in the first place. And now we're looking for them to get us out of it. Shame on us, is what I say. Will they lose their nerve and slow their hikes, or do they pull a Paul Volcker and scorch the earth? My next guest certainly has his view on these things. Please welcome to the show, Jeff Sica. Jeff, are we going to get a scorched earth policy here, or do you think that they're going to lose their nerve?
Well, that remains to be seen. I mean, what this Fed has shown us is that, I call them the fraidy cat Fed. What they've shown us is that they're desperately afraid of doing anything drastic. And in this case, that number on Friday shook the market up so much that they may have no choice. And, you showed your picture of you back in high school. You should see my picture. And I had a mullet and earrings and the whole deal. And so that's 40 years ago. 40 years ago, when Volcker took these drastic steps to reduce inflation. And one thing about Volcker is it was evident that he wasn't putting his focus on whether or not he was satisfying the market or investors. He had a very specific purpose, and that was to reduce inflation, and he succeeded. I don't know how investors today are going to be able to deal with those drastic steps, but they may have no choice. So that's where we stand now.
I agree with you. And 40 years is a long time, especially in politics. And just so the viewers know, Paul Volcker had the same position as the gentleman that was just on the screen, Jay Powell, and he was the one that came in, and his mandate, like Jeff said, was to get rid of inflation, and he did it because he raised rates shockingly high. I mean, into the teens. And what that did was it sent us into a recession, but he got his job done. And he was not worried about what the stock market was going to be doing. He didn't have to worry about that. He had a mandate from the president to take care of business, and he did. Now, I don't think today, Jeff, that anybody's got enough political goodwill capital to do that. They're all too worried about being elected again, and I don't think anybody has, the cojones to get that job done.
No, and that's a very good point, Scott. I mean, now it's become so political. I mean, the Fed has become so unbelievably political. So, now it's becoming where I think what's going to happen is Biden is going to begin to outwardly and aggressively blame Powell, because he's blaming everybody else. He's going to start to blame Powell, and that may impact Powell. It may not. I mean, what he's shown, the fact that Jay Powell has any credibility right now is amazing to me, because after that big lie, which was that inflation was transient. I mean, I think that was the most reckless thing that the Federal Reserve, that the Fed could ever have said, that it was transient, because a lot of people invested in such a way where they weren't worried about inflation. They thought the Fed had it under control and they were going to handle it. And now we're stuck in a very, very bad situation. So I think Jay Powell and the Fed have blood on their hands, and they're going to have to do something dramatic. So they better not be political. They're not supposed to be political. They better do what they need to do.
Well, I think they're being set up already. I agree with you. I mean, the fact that Jay Powell took a meeting at the White House, they're right there and then. I feel like he stepped into the trap, because now they're going to pivot and turn and blame it on him. And I think that that's unfortunate, number one. Number two, what's to stop you to believe that any other, I mean, look, the CIA has been politicized. The IRS has been politicized. I mean, every other big government institution has been politicized already. Why not the Fed on top of it? Because that's just the road we're on, and that's just the times we're in. And that's why I say I don't think that they have a Paul Volcker in the lot can then do that, because he came in and did his job, got his head down, and he won. He did it. He did a great job. But I don't think anybody could do that today.
No, and Paul Volcker eventually, he had Reagan, and I mean that became the incentive, because he understood what's happening. I mean, what you said was true. The fact that all these agencies have been so unbelievably politicized is tragic. It's tragic, and it's becoming. I mean, it's tyrannical when you think about it.
I agree.
Because they're not looking at what's good for people, for regular people. I mean, regular people now are suffering, and they're looking for what's good for the political party that endorsed us. I mean, you look at the background of some of these people running these agencies, it's horrifying how biased they are.
Well,
horrifying.
It's moved, unfortunately, Jeff, it's moved from doing the right thing to scoring points. I mean, that's the problem. And you know what? I think on both sides of the aisle, that's going to be a problem going forward. And until we get rid of that, I think we're just going to be in this situation for a while. So I really appreciate you coming on, Jeff Sica. You make a lot of those things much more understandable. I really appreciate you taking the time. All right. When looking at the markets, I have my go-tos. That's gold, oil, the 10-year yield, and the U.S. dollar. And ladies and gentlemen, there are some shockers in this one. Not really with the gold. Gold got a little nervous here. We've seen some wholesale selling of it. $43 lower, which isn't really that much. 1828 is the last, and that's down about $43. Let's move over to see what's going on in the crude oil market. How about crude? Crude oil is up. It went down a couple of bucks too. And this is going to be difficult for the Fed. The Fed going forward, $121 barrel of oil up to 122 earlier. That's going to be like an interest rate hike in itself. Again, until we get our energy policy underway, we're still going to have inflation, folks. I don't know what else to tell anybody, all right? And if we move over to see what the U.S. dollar is doing, it's got to have gotten stronger today, knowing what I know about what's been happening in the 10-year. And it has over 500 points higher. It's 634 points higher. Making a run at 105. We got up to 104.82. We're still at the highs of the day at 104.78. And let's bring up that 10-year yield. What's happening with that? That 10-year yield is... ouch, 335. That is a massive move, folks. That is a massive move. 6.12% in one day. So 3.35 on that 10-year yield, seeing what we're at just at 317.5. That hurts. Okay. Enough of the bad news. We're going to end our show with a little bit of brevity, right? Something fun. Every mother in the world could identify with Princess Kate during the Queen's Jubilee. How the royal family could be cashing in on little Louis's antics when the Cowguy Close returns.